Kia ora koutou. I'm excited to have here with me today Tarunesh Singh, BDO's Head of Risk Advisory, to discuss the latest BDO New Zealand Risk Landscape Report. Kia ora Tarunesh, thanks so much for joining me today. Now, your report, Riding the Wave of Uncertainty, is a fantastic resource for New Zealand business leaders and has highlighted some key themes for business leaders in Aotearoa to be aware of. I'd like to start off by asking if you could take me through what the top risks affecting New Zealand business owners and leaders are.
Of course. What a year. It really has been challenging and certainly had its ups and downs. Speaking to my clients, speaking to business owners, they're tired. They've had everything thrown at them this year. And what we've found through the research that we've done and speaking to our clients is that we're really seeing risk in four key areas. The biggest one, or at least the daily challenge at the moment, is the people shortage. The war on talent, finding and retaining the right people is a real big issue. And that's something that we're seeing on a global scale. People are having to work very long hours, and we've just recently seen that well-being across the business community has decreased. And a large contributor to that is how tired people are, how short-staffed people are, and how much they're having to work. The second category, geopolitical tensions and political instability. And I guess those two factors then leading on to economic instability. We're seeing incredibly high inflation numbers and interest rates are rising rapidly. This is driven by what's going on in the world around us. The war in Ukraine, we've seen what that's done to oil prices. Seen tensions in and around China. It was only recently that Japan is now looking at what would their strategy to go zero China look like. And that's a fundamental change for one of the manufacturing powerhouses, and that's going to have a real impact on the cost of everything that comes out of that country, which will ultimately be borne by business owners and you and I as consumers. Third area, supply chain. No real surprises here, especially coming out of the lockdown era and the impacts of COVID-19. The risk in this space is really coming from a few sub areas: access to shipping lines, the ability to transport goods in and out of ports around the world is a key one. Raw material shortages. So we're talking here about particularly off the back of physical environmental issues, so floods, droughts, other sort of natural disasters. Economic policy, and I've already mentioned the trade wars and tensions that are happening around the globe. All of these things come together and they're having a real impact, and businesses in New Zealand have done it really tough. They haven't been able to get what they need when they need, or if they have, they've had to work very hard to source those items. They're typically paying top dollar for them, and they're having to accept incredibly long lead times, which is really having an impact on the bottom line. The last area where we're seeing a lot of risk, and this one's growing rapidly, is around environmental, social, and governance issues and risks in that space, so ESG. Again, multifaceted. We're seeing a lot of pressure from consumers they want to see meaningful action and change from all of the businesses and organizations that they buy and buy from and work for. They want a meaningful stance on how are you limiting your impact on the environment? Are you working in socially equitable ways? And are you governing with good governance practices? That's also a really key issue for employees as well. They want to work for businesses that are sound across all three areas. And that, again, is, these are all interrelated. That's playing into the war on talent piece and the skill shortages that we're seeing. So yes, a lot going on, and completely understandable that we're seeing a lot of businesses weighed down and stressed. Well-being's definitely decreased. But there are some positives, and we can talk about those as well.
So it really seems like a plethora of challenges. Just when we thought we'd come out of the challenges that we were facing from the pandemic, we now have a whole bunch of new issues to contend with, and they're all kind of weaving together like this perfect storm. How long do you think that people will be experiencing these pressures for? Is this a short term or a long term or a long game that people need to prepare for?
Look, unfortunately, I think it is a longer game. And to a certain extent, I'm not sure that we will ever return fully to what the world was like in 2019, for example. You use the term perfect storm. It certainly has been that. But I think to a certain extent, some of that storm's not going to go away. This is part of, the new normal that we all talk about. What that means for businesses is that they need to really have a good grip on what their risk profile is and, what are the issues that are happening far afield, closer to home, that really have an impact on their organization. And it's not until you have that true understanding of where these forces are coming from, can you then take, or at least make a plan and then take some action to mitigate those particular risks or in some way alleviate the potential impact that they might bring with them.
There's a lot of talk about risk and a little bit of doom and gloom, but is there some opportunity that'll come from this? Will there be a lot of businesses who perhaps thrive in a challenging environment as well?
Certainly. Look, you touch on a really important point here, and that is risk is really only one side of the equation. We always think of risk as downside, but there certainly is potential upside here as well. And that's going to come with that true understanding of what the risk profile is and then taking action on those particular issues. I mean, most businesses can't really impact, the political scene or the geopolitical tensions that are happening. But what they can do is they can affect their actions and what they choose to do. And if you think about the issue of ESG, it's a potential cost. There's a lot of compliance that goes along with it. And there's a lot of change that needs to happen. However, this is something that's an expectation across the economy. If your business is one that acts quickly, acts meaningfully, and takes real action before your competitors, you're carving out a competitive advantage for yourself. And I think there are a number of opportunities in that space. Again, with supply chain, if you are truly understanding of what your issues are, you've got full transparency across your supply chain. You can take action on it. That might be, increasing stock levels if you've got the cash flow to do it. It could be nearshoring, bringing your supply chain or shortening your supply chain and bringing manufacturing production a little bit closer to home. It could be, probably one for the larger organizations, but we are actually seeing a lot of businesses create completely independent, full end-to-end backup supply chains in case the worst happens. Heaven forbid we have another, Ukraine type crisis on our hands. So there are actions you can take, and the bottom line, bringing it back to a positive note, is, well, if you take action, you act quickly and you act decisively, and you do that before your competitors, you're going to put your neck out a little bit in front of the others.
Well, I think the saying that I've heard before is diamonds, or some diamonds, are made under pressure, so it does breed opportunity as well. I know you touched on some bits there, some bits of advice, but what would be your top tips for business leaders and business owners in terms of managing risk, and how can they do that properly?
Look, I think I've touched on it already, but it's really just one simple point. It's taking action and make a plan. And really, what does that mean? What does it boil down to? Put simply, start with a risk register. It's not necessarily a popular term, but it is an incredibly powerful tool across the boardroom table and across the business. Again, risk has negative connotations attached to it, but really risk is just the other side of the strategy conversation. Everyone's really keen and willing to have a conversation about what can we do, how do we do that, what will we achieve, but then shy away from the conversation of, well, what could stop us from actually achieving that strategy? And so a risk register is a really great way of getting visibility and transparency over those risk issues that your business is or could be facing in the near future. And then you can take some action. But if you don't know what those are, you're never going to be able to take the right action at the right time.
Some fantastic tips and tricks there. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. I know a lot of people watching this will find a lot of value in what you've had to say today. And thank you so much for watching as well. To learn more and read practical tips for your business to help navigate risk, read the full report on the BDO website. Ngā mihi, haere rā, and thanks for joining us.